What's up, everybody? Welcome to Horror Reviews, and let's talk about this completely pointless remake of a pretty decent film. So Strangers Chapter 1 is the first part of a trilogy that, as far as I am aware, has already been filmed. If you look at Chapter 2 on IMDb, it has a 2024 release date and says it's in post-production. So we might get the sequel later this year. I don't know, maybe you know. I haven't looked into it any more details except for that I heard they were already filmed. Why we're doing this whole trilogy thing where we're just like creating a trilogy for films that don't need trilogies before we've even made the first film, I don't understand at all. Strangers Chapter 1 was directed by Renny Harlin, and he did Die Hard 2, Deep Blue Sea, a few other movies, some good, some bad. But I feel like every Renny Harlin film, you kind of like leans a little bit on the cheesy side. Like you kind of just know, at least the ones I've seen, you know that you're getting in for a little bit of cheese. Like I love Deep Blue Sea, but I wouldn't continue like say it's a serious like horror film by any means. So he was a strange pick to head this trilogy of films that we did not need. But let's get into the positives, the things that I liked about Strangers Chapter 1. And there are not many, but I will say that I had super duper low expectations going into this film. And so that may actually have benefited me. Well, I mean, it always benefits you. When you have really low expectations, I mean, for the most part, there's nowhere to go but up most of the time. So I will say, actually, I was pleasantly surprised to say, I think that there's some decent suspense in The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, I'm going to get into some negatives here in a few minutes. Of course, obviously, there's going to be a lot of negatives. I think this movie, for the most part, sucks. It's bad. It's badly written. But that being said, I do actually believe that there are some decent suspenseful scenes in here. I think that he makes pretty good use of silence in this film. Again, jump scares, loud noises, yes. But the times when there are not loud noises and there's not music playing, I feel like he actually does a pretty good job at stretching out the silence and building some tension that I was genuinely shocked. I felt a little bit like on the edge of my seat. Again, I'm not like rooting for these characters. I don't really care what's happening, but I do feel like there were some suspenseful sequences. There were some moments where I felt like he wasn't afraid to really just take his time and draw out the scenes and, you know, kind of play with our expectations and sort of just let the scene unfold, whether it's ridiculous or not. It felt like he wasn't afraid to take his time and sort of just play with us a little bit, play with what's going on. And I was genuinely shocked that I do think that this is a fairly suspenseful film. If you've never seen, like, if you haven't seen many suspenseful films, you might actually go in, watch this and think, hey, wow, that was pretty intense. Another positive is the acting. And by that, I mean, it doesn't suck entirely. I mean, I watched the trailer for this and I knew what I was getting in for. So towards the latter half of the film, when there are some more dramatic moments, I think that the main actress, I don't remember her name, does a fairly decent job pulling out some emotional beats when she needs them. I'm going to keep saying this, like it doesn't fit with the film. None of the choices make sense, but when she's needed to pull in some of those emotional strings and things like that, I think she does a fairly decent job. Going in expecting the worst, I think she was all right. The guy, for the most part, sucks. And I will say, while I'm talking about acting, the strangers, I mean, most of them are not bad. I will say the guy who plays like the sackhead, he's pretty good. I will say he's pretty decent. Again, for what we're getting on screen, I actually think his presence is pretty good. He's, of course, much bigger than the women. And so he's got a nice, strong, like, stature that does feel menacing. And of course, we've got the original costume design from the original Strangers film, and that works still in this film, maybe a little bit less, but it does work. So for the most part, they're okay. The rest of the actors in this film, all the side characters, everybody for the most part sucks. Again, they all kind of suck, but they don't suck absolutely terribly. One other positive I'll throw in there, just because it really stuck out in the film, when I was watching it and I knew what I was in for as soon as I sat down, as soon as I watched the trailer, I knew what I was in for. So when you get decent moments in the film, they really stand out. And there's a moment where he's in the diner, the guy's in the diner, and they're like giving him, the townspeople are giving him crap because she's a vegetarian and he hasn't put a ring on her finger. And so like, what are you waiting for? And he goes, right now, I'm waiting for my turkey melt. That was a good line. That was clever. I enjoyed that. Good delivery. Made me laugh. I thought it was clever. There's another line he has later in the film. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there's like a couple decent little moments that he has. And of course, that's like his entire character trait that he gets. But those just stand out so much in this film because like nothing stands out at all. There's a couple moments here and there where I was like, that was pretty clever. I'm honestly just struggling to come up with positives for this film, but I will kind of add to what I'd already said is honestly, this film was not as bad as I thought it would be. I thought it was going to suck. It's not good, but if you've never seen the original Strangers and you go into this and you aren't paying attention to the script, turn your brain off, and you don't really care what happens, you just want some like cat and mouse chase sequences, and you just want just a generic thriller, you know, you might have an okay time, honestly. It's not garbage. I mean, I should say it's not like abysmal. You know what I mean? It's just very baseline, very middle of the road. I think it's done competently enough with the scripts and things that we've been getting in this last year. I've been complaining about writing constantly. I think the stories are terrible. Dialogue is terrible. So if all those films seem to be pleasing audiences and people seem to be having fun with those, I don't see why they wouldn't also enjoy this, honestly. And again, that's not to say this film is good, because it's not. But for mass audiences, people that are not dissecting films, people that are not paying too much attention, I can see people just having a good time, shutting their brain off, and honestly enjoying this for the most part. So let's get into my negatives, and I wanted to rip this film a new one, but honestly, I just don't care that much. Like, what is there to say about this film? It's completely pointless. It's an exact remake of the first film with some minor things here and there that don't really change the overall concept of the film. Obviously, the ending is different, but like, it's like you could throw a rabbit just like into the living room and have it like hop around the entire film. That would be different. Does that make the movie better? No, it doesn't. And it doesn't really change anything if they do exactly the same stuff. There's just different pieces that they write in there, different setup to the movie, but it doesn't really change anything. You know, calling it an Airbnb in Oregon when they're on their like anniversary driving wherever, like these little tidbits of their car breaking down and everything doesn't change the core fundamentals of the film. They just got dropped off at the house now. That helped? How? Like, why did you think, hey, that's better, let's change it? You could have kept all of that exactly the same and then change more of the story. Why is that the thing that you change to make the movie different? So, I mean, like, again, it's completely pointless. I don't know why we're getting a trilogy of these films. The acting is not very good. The writing is atrocious. Every time anything predictable or generic can possibly happen in this film, it happens. You know, how ridiculous is it that the characters get to an Airbnb and expect someone to come fix the refrigerator late at night? Like, what? That's such a ridiculous request in the first place, but it's clearly just in there so we can have the scene later where the guy shows up. I thought it was going to be, she thought they were at the door when they were knocking. Like, I thought they'd come and be like, is Tamara here? And she'd be like, oh, it's the refrigerator repairman. But it is not really any different. It's the exact same concept. They wanted to just fake us out at the end. So that's why that's in there. But it's completely ridiculous for them to even ask someone, and completely impossible for them to think that someone would come fix this in the middle of the night when they're out in the middle of nowhere, supposedly, even though they said, there's nothing within 5 miles of here. 5 miles is not that far. They made such a big mistake of like saying, there's nothing within 5 miles of here. And that just adds to the fact that later in the film, when you're like, just run, like just go, it's just 5 miles. Like I run 5 miles in the morning. People would jog that. Like, just go. You know, it's such a big mistake to add that dialogue in there. But as I was saying, you know, sidetracking here, but you know, it was just such a stupid setup for an inevitable fake out. And I hate stuff like that in movies where they're just trying to fake you out just for the sake of fake out, and it's super predictable. Every moment like that you see coming a mile away, you know, like you know exactly what's going to happen. Obviously, he's going to shoot the refrigerator. Like I saw that coming as soon as then it's like their characters change. Again, I'm sorry I'm jumping all over the place. But when that moment towards the end of the film, when they shoot the guy who's coming to fix the refrigerator, it's like their characters change. All of a sudden, he's like, oh, stay here, which is dumb. I'm going to go get him. He like turns around and all of a sudden he's like hunting and he's like, boom, shoots the guy. He's all brave and he's like masculine, like I saved the day. But they haven't acted like that the entire film. It's like the movie's insulting to the point that not only is it predictable, you know that it's happening, but the characters genuinely like change to like almost try to fake you out more, like, oh, he's being brave now. It's like the story doesn't work. And then, of course, they set down the gun and he kills the guy. And he's like, he literally like goes, sets down the gun and goes, okay, we're good. We're okay. And they're just standing on the deck in the middle of the light, knowing that there's 2 other people. Who knows how many other people? You know, they've seen 2. How many more could there be? There could be a bunch more. There could be 20. There could be the whole town. They're suspicious of the town. But they're just like, and they just sit on the step. And then she's like, no, wait, where's his mask? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And of course, then the keys are between his legs, and it takes them like 20 minutes to decide whether you should grab the keys and leave. Just leave. Just go. So like 2 seconds ago, he was all brave. He's like, I'm going to go shoot the guy. But now he can't decide to get the keys and leave. And then they almost forget the shotgun, which felt like a moment where they put that in there just so we'd be like, no, don't forget the gun. Because she like walks away and goes, oh, wait, and then grabs it. But again, that's just stupid. It's just dumb. It doesn't make me think, oh, yeah, they grabbed the gun. It makes me think that's really dumb. Another additional dialogue scene where he finds the gun and says, don't worry, I have a gun and plenty of ammo. And then what happens later in the film? He doesn't have enough ammo. He has a couple of shells, and it's like, why? Just don't add that line. Just don't write that. You don't need to add it. Who would even say that? No one would ever even say that in real life. No one would be like, don't worry, honey, I've got plenty of ammo, and I found a shotgun. Like that. That's not how people talk. Another scene later in the film that, of course, is ridiculous and predictable is when he's driving the Jeep, and instead of just driving, he like looks to the side, just watches the guy plow into him, which is stupid. But of course, I knew he's going to get his leg stuck or something, and he does. He gets his leg stuck, super predictable. And I counted, okay? I can't remember the exact seconds, but I knew this was going to happen, so I counted. The time it takes him to say, no, go on without me, is like twice or 3 times longer than the time it actually takes him to get his leg unstuck when he tries to unstick it. It takes him 7 seconds to unstick his leg, which is like a quarter of the time it took him to tell her to get out of the Jeep. And I knew that was going to happen, and it's just ridiculous. Like, write something better. Can you not, if he's going to get stuck, let's get him stuck. Then they drag him out, and then maybe he gets away. Have him actually be stuck. Don't just like write that just so she leaves, and then it takes him and also he keeps the gun. He makes her run away, and he keeps the gun. How insanely ridiculous is that guy for doing that? Let's talk about the kills real quick in this, to which there are not many, and they all suck. You know, the practical effects in this there's not really much going on, you know? Like, even the scenes where they get stabbed at the end of the film, they don't look very good. In fact, the scene where she gets stabbed, it looks pretty bad. Like, she gets stabbed, and like, if you pay attention, it like looks weird. Like, her head lifts up, and then they like try to turn it. Maybe it was the guy, one of them. I can't remember exactly what, because it's like exactly the same stab, which is not very unique. And the same shot there's nothing really going on, but there's like, they try to turn it, and it almost looks like it's just wiggling around in the shirt. It doesn't look very good, and it doesn't sell it. And then he looks fine. The guy, when he gets stabbed too, he like looks fine. He's just like looking at her, and it's like, okay, did you get stabbed? And then he falls on the ground. All of a sudden, blood's rushing out his mouth, and he dies. It's like, what? Okay. That was anticlimactic just a little bit. The whole setup for this film, when they're like driving through a creepy town, it just kills the entire concept of this film, because you know it's just these town members, right? Or you know it's just that girl that drove from the diner. She's one of the strangers or whatever. You know, these things are like obvious because they're in a creepy town. It's like the benefit of having a regular house in a regular town, in a regular place, and being out in the middle of nowhere is it makes the creepiness scarier. Because if everything's creepy and everything's weird, then it's like, well, duh, you know, you didn't trust the mechanics in the first place. And then you have some stranger drive you out in the middle of nowhere in a state where you don't know where you are, in a town that you don't know where you are, where you don't like the people, they don't like you, and you're staying in an Airbnb at like the middle of the night. And you're surprised when there's weird people that show up your door. It doesn't work if everything's weird, you know? It's like they just threw in little kids that are trying to hand out Bible pamphlets, because I'm assuming it'll play into the trilogy, or at least I hope it does. At least they're going somewhere with this, you know? But it's like, it doesn't work in this film. It's got to work in one film for it to work in 3 films. Unless it's something that doesn't like overtly stand out, then you'll explain it later. You can't just have random crap in there just for the sake of being weird and have that be your story. In addition to that, the fact that he gets on the motorcycle, which is just so stupid. They go to an Airbnb in the middle of the night, they steal the person's motorcycle, they complain about the fridge not working, which you don't even need a fridge because you don't have any food. I mean, I already complained about the fridge thing, but it's like, they don't even have food. They don't even need a fridge for the beer. Again, another just stupid thing. They took beer just so they could have the fridge, just so they could call. Point being, when they took the motorcycle, again, not only is that ridiculous to do, and where they had the keys just lying around, someone just left their motorcycle at the Airbnb. What? But then having your characters leave the like home that they're supposed to get invaded in just breaks the barrier. You know, it's like once you get there, if you can just leave and come back, unless you really like try to build up the story and you really try to, you know, draw out that suspense and creepiness or really explain things, it kills the tone of the film because we've already seen them leave once. You know, they just leave, come on back, and now you're kind of like, oh, so they're not stuck. He can just ride to town. Again, you could probably just walk to town if you could just ride there pretty quickly, come back with dinner. And while he's there, while I'm talking about it, I'm just throwing a bunch of crap out. Like the girl has absolutely no character development in the world. What could you do? What girl in movie does what while boyfriend is gone? Would she play music? Check, let's do that. The weirdest music possible and not react to it at all. Just act like it's totally normal. Yeah. Does she do drugs? Yep, she does that. Sit on her phone? Check, do that. What do women always do in horror films? Oh yeah, take showers. Yep, take a shower. Oh, look for the fuse box. Check, do that. Every random generic thing she could possibly do as if she has no character development, no personality whatsoever. She's just sitting alone, waiting for boyfriend to come back with food. You like, could you write something a little more interesting for her? Could she watch a TV show? Could you at least like have her enjoy music? Like every concept, every piece of that, it's like weird music she doesn't even react to. Could she at least like be into vinyl or, you know, be into records? Or maybe she likes to do a lot of drugs. It's just like, she just does stuff and it's just like a montage of random crap while she's waiting for her boyfriend. Okay, I've gone on long enough. Let's just talk about the end real quick. You know, of course the girl lives and she wakes up in the hospital so that we can have a trilogy, which we don't need. And she's probably going to be our main character. We're going to follow her. So it just makes the after credit scene. If you have not seen the after credit scene, I'm going to talk about it right now. She wakes up in the bed, it like ends obviously with her in the hospital bed, but then after the credits, she wakes up in the bed. And again, the acting, she's just kind of like, what's going on? Like, she goes right into like suspense mode instead of like, where the hell am I? In this hospital room that doesn't look like a hospital room with all the lights turned off. She's like, just acts like all suspenseful instead of like wondering where she is. And she sits up and then the sackhead guy or whatever is right behind her and he like looks up and then that's the end of it. There might be an after credit scene. I didn't stay for it. Let me know if there is, if you're watching this. I'm curious if there is, but it's just dumb. Like then, so she escaped to survive so that she can escape to again in the hospital, or it's going to be a dream sequence, which is just stupid. Again, just another thing that they throw at us so that they can slap us in the face when we come back. I guarantee in the sequel, if she's going to be our main character, she's going to immediately get out of that situation super quick, or it's going to be a dream sequence. So they're not going to have that be any like lasting impact at all. So what was the point of that? It just was dumb. It's dumb that she survived anyway. You didn't show like, yeah, you showed like police on the way, but like he didn't show any like real suspense to the point where we think she might live, or like they didn't get a chance to kill her, or like any sort of nail biting, like, oh, I hope she survives. She put up a good fight. She just like dies on the floor with the guy, but then she doesn't die. I genuinely would have been so much better if they just were like dragging her body out and she opens her eyes. Then you could just end the film there, honestly. I mean, yeah, that would have been a cliffhanger, but so is this one. It's better than what we got, or the paramedics could have just like said, hey, we got a live one here, like in Scream. It could have been something so generic, but why do we have to wake up in a hospital like 4 million other movies? And again, just to be probably not mean anything. I highly doubt the sequel is going to take place in the hospital. So it's just stupid for stupid sake. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. If you stayed through to the end, I don't know where these films are going, but I don't really care to see. I am interested in seeing the sequel simply because at least it will be different and not just a remake of the first film. I can't believe a trilogy that starts with a remake is insane. I forgot to add to the positives also that I mean, at least that's different. You know, it's a trilogy based off a remake. Hey, it's different. I mean, we're getting new things. But again, thanks for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. Let me know what you guys thought about The Strangers Chapter 1 down below, and where you think this trilogy is going. If you have any predictions, let me know. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it.
I'm scared, I'm a big bad wolf. Oh, I never see the silver lining, only see the gold. I don't speak in caps, dog, everything bold. And I put that on myself, cause it's a life that I done chose. I said come through, you can see me on the west side. Now it's funny how they walking